The Gdansk Regionals just finished up, and we have to talk about some of the more interesting decks that were played this weekend. Welcome to Dark Bear Dojo. I am Nick, and today, I said it, we're looking at Gdansk. We're going to talk about the results. We're going to talk about some of the cool decks, at least the decks that I think are really cool, that we haven't talked about in the past. Obviously, we could talk about Iron Valiant Entei, we could talk about Mew, we could talk about Gardevoir. None of it really matters. We've talked about them all in the past. I don't have anything really new to add to Charizard, for example. So we're going to focus on two really cool decks. One a bit of a blast from the past and the other kind of new. But before we do, we're going to go ahead and look at Gdansk overall. If you haven't already, do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. Tells YouTube this is a good channel. Other people should watch it. I have a personal goal of getting to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if we hit that goal, I have a really cool giveaway. It's super easy. Subscribe, it's free and it's fast, and it makes me feel good. So anyway, with all that said, we're going to go over to Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and just start to take a look at this. So we're on Twitter, and we're actually more specifically on Justin Basil's Twitter. So huge shout out to Justin Basil for posting all this information, getting these graphics onto Twitter easily. So please go check it out. Justin Basil's Twitter, wonderful resource. Miraidon, the most popular deck by far, it's 16%. Gardevoir, Charizard, Mew, all pretty clustered together in that 11-12% range, and then Chimpao and Lost Stone Giratina also in that kind of third tier popularity at 8 and 9%. So this is roughly what we expect. We for the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about how this is a very 8, 9, 10% meta, and we're still seeing that even over in Europe. Miraidon pulling ahead of the pack at 16%. Not really surprising. It's been doing very well. It won a regionals. It's just been doing really well. So I'm not surprised to see Miraidon picking up in popularity, being the #1 pick. There's really no very good fighting type. Iron Valiant Entei, there's no fire type. So you have to rely on like something like Rapid Strike, Urshifu, and Teleon. But then Miraidon's strong against half the deck and weak to half of it, so it's kind of a weird matchup. And then you can use Iron Valiant Rapid Strike, but still there's challenges there. So this is the day one meta. There was a total of 994 players. It's a pretty big tournament, right? 1,000 players. That's sizable. So this is a pretty good representation of the meta currently. Moving on to day 2, though, 104 players. And Mew VMAX, what is happening? That Mew VMAX is where was it here? It was number 4 on the list at 11%, and now it's in the top spot at 20%. It had such a crazy conversion. Notably, Gardevoir is no longer on this list. Chimpao's no longer on this list, and now we're getting the addition of Roaring Moon and Snorlax Stall. So really interesting day 2 happening here. Europe, for some reason, Mew always seems to do well in Europe. I don't know why people aren't playing. I guess maybe they thought more Charizard, a high percent of Charizard would kind of keep Mew down or keep it out. Roaring Moon's also pretty difficult matchup for Mew because they're taking 3 prizes, you're taking 2. I don't know, man. I don't know why Mew's constantly doing so well. I don't like it. But at the end of the day, we have to go into this top cut. So we have our top 8 here. 2 Mews, 3 Charizards. We have the Tord Reklev Lost Zone box with Roaring Moon and Iron Hands. We have a Snorlax Stall. And then we have a Palkia Ice Rider. Palkia Ice Rider, something we haven't seen since Palkia was introduced. It's really surprising to see, but we're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about 2 of these decks, and spoilers, it's not Mew and it's not Charizard. So yeah, I think I already said that. But anyway, huge congratulations again. This is from Justin Basil's Twitter, so thank you very much. Lucas, I don't know how to say that last name. I'm really sorry, but huge congratulations for winning the Gdansk Regionals with Snorlax Stall. I personally, not a big fan of Stall, but, what are we going to do about it? It's good. It's good. I don't know what else to say. I don't like Stall. I don't think it's fun to play. I don't think it's fun to play against. I understand how some people enjoy playing it or playing against it. It really makes you think. I don't feel like thinking. I want to put big Pokemon in play, do big numbers. That's how that's me personally. So you know, everyone's gonna have their preferences, I suppose. Uh, Toward Reklev got into that top 8 spot with this deck, and we're gonna talk about it. I have it put it up right here. It's a Lost Zone deck, right? But it combines so many different elements of things that Lost Zone decks have used in the past, or maximizing some certain aspects of it. So of course we have the Sableye Comfy Cramorant package to actually get cards into the Lost Zone. Comfy lets us go ahead and use flower selecting, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one into your hand, one into the Lost Zone. As we get cards into the Lost Zone, we start to unlock effects of other cards. So Cramorant Lost Provision says if we have 4 or more cards in the Lost Zone, this card attacks for free and it does 110 damage. We have things like Mirage Gate. You can only use this card if you have 7 or more cards in the Lost Zone. Search your deck for 2 basic energies of different types and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you want. And then we have Sableye, which has the Lost Mine attack for a single Psychic Energy. You can only use it if you have 10 cards in the Lost Zone, but you get to put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you want. How do we get cards into the Lost Zone? Well, we already talked about Comfy. That's one way, but the other way is Chorus's Experiment. You look at the top 5 cards, put 3 into your hand, 2 into the Lost Zone. So now we're able to go ahead and use a couple of Comfies. We have switch cards and escape ropes to cycle through our Comfies to get as many cards into the Lost Zone as possible, as fast as possible, and then pair that with something like Chorus. In a single turn, you can very easily get 4, 5, 6 cards into the Lost Zone, depending on how many switch cards and energies you have to manually retreat. Again, you can only manually retreat once, but still. So in addition to our Lost Zone package, we have Radiant Greninja, concealed cards, lets us go ahead, discard an energy card from our hand to then draw 2 cards. But we also have the attack Moonlight Shuriken for 2 water and a colorless. You get to do 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, which is really good. You have to discard 2 energies from this Pokemon to use the attack, but we're not really super worried about that. So now we can go ahead, soften things up with Radiant Greninja, so we can either knock it out with Sableye, or we can, knock it out with Cramorant, whatever. More importantly, we can soften things up with Radiant Greninja, so we can use something like the Iron Hands EX, amp you very much for a Lightning 3 colorless, does 120 damage, and if your opponent's Pokemon active is knocked out by this attack, you take an extra prize. So now, is there something that has 170, 180 health? We can go ahead and use the Radiant Greninja, soften it up, and now this amp you very much does enough damage to take the KO and get us an additional prize. We can also use something like combination of the Cramorant and Sableye to do 110, 120 damage. If we do 110 with something like Spit Innocently, and now we do an extra 120, that's 230, enough to knock out opposing Iron Hands, opposing Roaring Moons, Lugias, Arceus, Palkias, Chimpows. Name a Pokemon V, or a basic Pokemon V, or a basic Pokemon EX, and that's getting knocked out between a combination of Sableye, Cramorant, and Iron Hands, amp you very much. However, how do we get this energy onto the Radiant Greninja? Well, we have 2 ways of doing it, or there's 3 technically. We can manually attach for turn, but that's too long. We can go ahead and use Mirage Gate, we already talked about that, but you need 7 cards into the Lost Zone in order to do it. And then we have Palkia V-Star with the Star Portal ability. Once during your turn, you may put up to 3 1 energies from your discard pile to your water Pokemon and play in any way you want. Now, we can go ahead and power up this Radiant Greninja, or we have this Kyogre with the Aqua Storm for 2 waters and a colorless. Notice both the Greninja and the Kyogre have attack costs of 3, and that's exactly what Palkia allows us to power up. So now we can discard the top 5 cards of our deck, choose up to 2 of our opponent's benched Pokemon. This attack does 50 damage for each energy we discarded using this attack to the Pokemon we chose. So we discard up to 5 energies, we do 50 damage for each energy, we can do up to 250 damage to 2 of our opponent's benched Pokemon. Again, 230, 230, 220. We can go ahead and soften things up with the Sableye so we can spread a bunch of damage counters around. Arceus V, Lugia V-Star, some other Palkia V-Stars. These all have 280 health. So now we can go ahead, something like the Gardevoir EX has 310, so we put 6 damage counters. Now we'd go ahead, do 250 to it. We're taking KOs. We can very easily take huge prizes with this Kyogre And we can power it up in a single turn with the Palkia. We can power it up in a single turn by attaching a water using a Mirage Gate to search for a water and then any other basic energy, which, by the way, we got 2 Psychic, 2 Lightning, 4 Water, and 4 Dark. So it's very easily powered up, and we attack out of nowhere for huge damage. Now, there is something important to note about this Kyogre, and that we have to discard the top 5 cards of our deck, and if they're not water energies, we're not doing any damage. So what Kyogre decks often want to do is thin the deck out to 0 as fast as humanly possible, or very close to 0, and then we use something like this Energy Recycler so we can shuffle up to 5 basic energies from our discard back into our deck. So we get those energies into the discard, we go down to 0, we Energy Recycler, we discard the top 5 cards, we know they're all energies, we're guaranteed hitting for 250 to 2 Pokemon. That's how we close out games oftentimes. So we can go ahead and take 4 prizes with the Kyogre if we already took 2 prizes with something like Iron Hands onto a Comfey, onto whatever, Greninja. Now we're able to close out this game pretty easily, pretty fast. It is worth noting that a lot of terrestrial Pokemon, like the Charizard EX, they cannot be damaged by attacks. They can't be, you can't put, can't do damage to them when they're on the bench. So the difference, you can't damage a Charizard EX with Aqua Storm. However, you can place damage counters onto a Charizard EX with Sableye. So knowing how to navigate things like that is really important. We do have a bunch of Pokemon search. We got 4 Battle VIP Pass. We got 4 Nest Balls. We got a Hisuian Heavy Ball. We already talked about our Switch options. We have some Pokegears to help us find our Chorus. That's the only supporter we have in the deck is 4 Chorus. So between Comfeys and Raining Greninja, we might need a little bit of help finding these choruses because they're super important for actually getting cards into the lost and getting our deck running. So we do use Pokegear. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Take a supporter you find there, put it into your hand. We have Palpad to recover our choruses if we need to. And then we have 3 Super Rods to recover any of these Pokemon and energies. We can shuffle up to 3 Pokemon or basic energies from our discard back into our deck in any combination we want. Talked about Energy Recycler, and of course we have 2 copies of Pokestop. Discard the top 3 cards of your deck and put any item cards you find there into your hand. Now, most of what we have is items. Again, we have a handful of Pokemon, a handful of energies, and then just 4 supporters and 2 stadiums. Everything else is our item card. So the odds of us finding an item card is pretty high. If we do get rid of a Pokemon, again, we have that Super Rod, so we can go ahead, put it back into the deck. We got those Nest Balls, so we can go ahead, put them back into the deck. We have a bunch of 1-ofs, 1 Sableye, everything here, everything aside from Comfey, we have 1-of. So if we need to find one of our basic Pokemon, we got that Heavy Ball. We can look at our prizes in the meantime. Really cool. This is such a unique, interesting deck. It's not super far off of what we've seen other Lost Zone decks playing Iron Hands and Roaring Moon, but now we got the Palkia and the Kyogre in there as well, and I think that makes this so much more interesting because there's so many things we could do. Palkia also is a really good attacker with 280 health, Subspace Swell for just 2 water energies. We do 60 damage plus 20 more damage for each Pokemon in on the bench, both yours and your opponent. So now there's both benches are filled with 5 Pokemon each. You're hitting for 260 consistently for just 2 energies, which again, you can power up this Palkia with by yourself with using the Star Portal. You can attach an energy for turn, and then you can play something like a Mirage Gate to attach 1 energy here, and then a second energy wherever you need. Onto a Sableye, onto a Comfey for a free pivot, onto a Roaring Moon, or onto an Iron Hands to start getting that going. Speaking of Roaring Moon, incredible attacks, Frenzy Gouging for 2 Dark and a Colors. Just let you knock out whatever's in the active. It just knocks anything out. You do 200 damage to yourself, but for the most part, you're a single prize deck. I mean, you're using a lot of single prize Pokemon here. However, if we have something that maybe is weak to Dark, or we have a Stadium in play, we can go ahead and use Calamity Storm, does 100 damage for the same energy requirements, but we can discard a Stadium in play to do 120 more damage. So that means if we do come across a Palkia V, Arceus V, something, Chiampao, EX, anything like that, we can go ahead and use Calamity Storm to just knock that out. And now they have to deal with this big 230 HP Pokemon. And then if they don't, we just Frenzy Gouging okay, fine, maybe we knock ourselves out, but we've taken 4 prizes potentially, and they're going to take 2. That is a trade I will take most of the time. We can, again, close out the game with that Kyogre, close out the game with an Iron Hands, boss up a Frigibax, whatever, boss up a Beaverell, and then we go ahead, amp you very much for game. I'll take it. I'll take it any day of the week. So, really cool deck, but we have one more I want to talk about. So, Luke Kirkham, congratulations, top 4. Top 4 was rough. Definitely should have taken different lines game 1. Great to see Palkia return to the center stage. Maybe not quite team washed up yet. So, this is the deck list. We're going to go ahead and talk about it a little bit more. It's mostly Palkia, right? We got that 3-3 Palkia line. We already talked about Palkia V-Star. The Palkia V does have some merit to it. Hydro Break does 200 damage. So if our opponent is trying to play around filling their bench, and then, we're not getting as much damage as we would with Subspace Swell, and maybe we don't have a super wide bench, they're playing around it, we can still use the Palkia V to do pretty good damage. It does take an extra energy to get there, but again, if we have a Palkia V-Star in play, we can very easily power it up in a single turn. Now we have the Ice Rider V, the Ice Rider Calyrex V. I don't know why I said it weird like that. Pierce is a pretty good attack for just softening something up so that we can knock it out with Subspace Swell later. We do also have the V Max. Metal is not a very common type right now, so we basically don't have a weakness, which is great. Ride at a High King for 2 colorless does 10 damage plus 30 more for each damage. 30 more. Oh my god, I can't read. It does 30 more damage for each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So it can do like 160. It's okay. It's a worse Subspace Swell. However, the attack we really want to use this for is something like Max Lance. Does 10 plus. You can discard up to 2 energy from this Pokemon, and for each energy you discard, it does an extra 120 damage. So you can do 250 with this Ice Rider pretty easily. Again, think about the Pokemon that are in play: Miraidon, Iron Hands, Chien-Pao, Wrong Moon. You're going to be one-shotting all those Pokemon very easily, and they're not going to be able to Chien-Pao could one-shot you. Wrong Moon can one-shot you, so you do have to be a little careful about using the VMAX, but in some matchups, it might be worth it to throw this thing down and just take some KOs. Maybe you 2-shot some Pokemon, they 2-shot you, but you've taken 4 prizes, 3 prizes, and now you're ahead. Something to consider. We do also have the Suicune V. Fleet Foot will just let you draw a card when it's in the active. We've seen this with Raikou and Entei, both of which are pretty popular inclusions at the moment. But now we have Suicune, and it's the attack is exactly the same. Blizzard Rondo does 20 damage, and then 20 more for each Pokemon on your and your opponent's bench, so it hits for 220. It's, again, just a weaker Subspace Swell, but we don't have to evolve it. So, because we don't evolve it, it has less health, but we can just kind of slap it into play, power it up very easily, and attack. This is looking extremely similar to an old deck, which Palkia Ice Rider, throw a Suicune in there. We got Lumineon to play it down from our hand, search the deck for a supporter. It is worth noting we can actually attack with Lumineon in this deck because it plays water, double colors. Aqua Return does 120 damage, and then we can send this Pokemon and all cards attached to it back into the deck, which means we can search for Lumineon later and then use it to find, say, our one of boss's orders, find an era, to find that Melanie we need to power up a Pokemon to get the game. And also on top of that, we deny the prizes of the Lumineon, so we don't have to worry about our opponent going, boss amp you very much. That's 3 prizes right there. Knock out this Ice Fighter, and then they just win, right? So it allows us to deny some easy prizes, and it allows us to reuse this Lumineon, so even if we start it, we're not in the worst position in the world. It is something that we can play around. We got the Mew EX, free retreat. Having a free pivot is incredible for something like this. Plus, we can go ahead and once during your turn, you may draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. Really, really cool. We can't power this up as easily as some other decks can, like other Chien-Pao decks, because the Baxcalibur allows you to power up any Pokemon in play using water energies, and Palkia only lets you power up water Pokemon you have in play. So it's not a water type, so you can't power it up, and it's not a V Pokemon, so you can't use Melanie to power this thing up either. So you're going to be stuck manual attachments There are no energy switches in this deck, so it's not even like we can go ahead and power up another Pokemon and then attach energy switch, and be good. We can do the same thing with Radiant Greninja that we talked about previously. We can use Star Portal to power up Radiant Greninja. And now we also have the Mysterious Tail Mew. Once during your turn, when this Pokemon's in the active, you can look at the top 6 cards of your deck, find an item there, put it into your hand. This is really good because we might need to find trekking shoes to draw. We might want to find Battle VIP Pass at the very beginning of the game. We want to find Lost Vacuum to get rid of a Path of the Peak, Earthen Vessel, so we can go ahead and find some energy cards. Maybe we need a switch. Notice we do have a few switches in this deck, 3 switches and 2 escape ropes. Part of that is because we want to be able to get the Chien-Pao into the active, so we can go ahead and use the Shivery Chill. Once during your turn, this Pokemon is in the active spot. Search your deck for up to 2 basic water energy Pokemon, up to 2 water energies, and put them into your hand. So we can get those water energies, and now we can discard them between things like Ultra Ball. We can discard them with Radiant Greninja, and now we can start to use things like the Star Portal. We can start to use things like Melanie, which lets us take a water energy from the discard and attach it to one of our Pokemon V in play, and then draw 3 cards. We also have that 1 copy of Boss's Orders and 4 copies of Irida, which lets us search a deck for a water Pokemon and an item. Almost everything in this deck is water Pokemon, with the exception of the 2 Mews and the 1 Spiritomb, which says basic Pokemon V in play have no abilities. That does include your Suicune V and your Lumineon V. So if you do have the Spiritomb in play, you're not going to be able to fleet-footed, and you're not going to be able to use Luminous Sign. So something to keep in mind, but it will stop Genesect. It will stop your opponent's Lumineon. It will stop, I kind of think that's, I guess it's, it doesn't stop Lugia because this is basic. I think that's kind of it. That's like the only things in the meta right now. I guess it'll technically stop Raikou and Entei from doing their thing as well, since they're pretty popular. Anyway, as far as Pokemon search goes, we talked about Battle VIP Pass. We got the Ultra Ball. We got the Nest Balls. Lost Vacuum, like I said, to get rid of Path to the Peak. We got some cross switches. This way we can still go ahead and use Melanie to power up a Pokemon and draw 3 cards, but we can still pull a Pokemon into the active. If we got this Mew EX on the bench, even if, for example, we need to attack with this Chien-Pao, for example. Chien-Pao is currently in the active because we used a switch card to put Chien-Pao in the active. So we can use Shivery Chill, get 2 water energies out of the discard, out of the deck. Now I have to cross switch it. I can cross switch it into my Mew and then get free retreat, right? So even though we, have something in the active that we might not want, we can still cross switch it, bring up Mew, free pivot. There's just so much we can do with this. Chien-Pao is also really something we can power up pretty easily because, remember, Chien-Pao's Hailblade says that we can discard any amount of water energies from any of our Pokemon and do 60 damage, which means we can go ahead and use something like Star Portal, get 3 energies in play. Attach for turn, that's 4, and then Melanie to our Palkia, and now that's 5. So now we can still use this Hailblade, discard energies from the Melanie, the Palkia, the attach for turn. We can discard 5 energies that we put into play in a single turn, and all of a sudden we're doing 300 damage. That's enough to knock out pretty much anything in the game you're going to see, with the exception of a Mew VMAX or a Gardevoir EX or a Charizard EX. So, sure, you're not going to take a one-shot on any of those, but if you're smart about how you do your math and what, I use Pierce to do 40, now I am taking a one-shot on everything. I can soften things up pretty easily. And something like Pierce is great into Charizard because guess what they start as? Water-weak Charmanders that have 60, 70 HP. One Pierce for a single energy KOs them. Now you get the free prize. Sure, you have to worry about that Charizard, that rare candy Charizard playing that now you've taken a prize. They do 30 more damage. Now that 180 from Burning Darkness goes up to 210. Ice Rider has 210. Suicune has 210. Everything else is either going to survive or would already be KO'd by Charizard anyway, like the Lumineon or the Mew. Mew especially because it is weak to dark. But anyway, you get the point that I'm trying to make. There are things we can do. There's counterplay that can happen. So choose your path wisely. But this is such a cool deck. And like I said, it is kind of a blast from the past with the Palkia Ice Rider Suicune kind of combo. Now we're throwing in this Chien-Pao to act as our Capacious Bucket. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty cool deck. I love to see things return. I like to see variation. I like to see innovation, whatever you want to call it. I don't know how innovative you can call this, because again, it was something that existed in the past, but still love to see it. So there you go. Gdansk in a nutshell. Talked about the total event, the meta, we talked about the top 8, and we talked about 2 really cool decks from that top 8. I'm not going to talk about Snorlax Stall because I don't feel confident enough in the deck and how it wants to function. Super high level. It wants to deck you out, right? That's its goal. Take a super long game 1, deck you out, and then not finish game 2, and then win like that. But other than that, I don't really play control, so can't talk about it. But that's Gdansk. I hope you enjoyed, found it informative. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. Tells YouTube, Discord channel. I already talked about that. Let me know what you want to see next, and otherwise, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. I want to give a special shout out to the YouTube members: Black Wins, Mike the Highest, Fernando Ortiz, Chin Pokemon, and Eric N. Thank you all so much for your support. It really means a lot to me. And if you want to become a channel member, you can go ahead and click the channel member button somewhere at the bottom of the page. I'm not really sure. I haven't done it myself.